So we already put this video out once, guys, and we left a couple of important components out of the other video when it comes to the 3S platform. So the 3S slipper has a few more components in there. They're very important. You need to know what they are and how they go together. So we reshot that section of this video to show you all the components. We'll explain what's necessary, what we got to have, how things go together, and we'll show you how to build one. The Mega one was accurate, that one stays the same, but the 3S has new information in it. I hope this makes up for the video we put out earlier. We don't like to do things wrong, and therefore we don't leave them online. Here we go. Hey guys, in this video we're going to continue on with the slipper clutch. Now, we did slipper clutches 101 and we went over the basics of what they're for and basically what you want to do for tuning. In this one we're actually going to pull these apart, show you how they come apart, show you the components that are in each one, and then we're going to show you how to put them back together and what's necessary to tune them. But in this one, we're just going to do the 3S ones from Arrma. They're all basically about the same as far as the components go, and this is a good way to show you what the differences are. And this side here, this is the Mega and the Boost transfer case, and this has one type of slipper clutch in it. So we'll use this one, and we'll show you this one first. So in the timeline, you'll see this is the first one we're going to go after. Then we're going to do this one, and this is actually the 3S system with the brushless motor and everything, and it's built slightly different, guys. It's built just a little bit tougher than this one, but they both do basically the same thing. So let's get on the bench and let's pull these things apart and we'll show you what's up. Check this out. Okay, first one up, it's the Mega. Here we go. Okay, so let's get the cover plate off, and there's 3 screws holding this on. There we go, and just tug it off. Nice. So you slip the slipper out, and this has got a red nut on it, so you just back that red nut off, and it'll take the pressure off of that spring right there. Now we'll lay these out in order. There we go. Now you notice how this slides through nice and easily? Look at there. There's the pin that we need to hold this backing plate on. It's kind of loose in this one, so keep an eye out for that. There's the friction plate, and there's the spur gear, and the bearing is still attached. This is the output shaft, and see the hole here? So there's a corresponding hole just like it on the friction plate. So when you line these two up, when you do assembly, get them lined up good. Let's see, let's use the tool for this. These are nice to have. Okay, so get this into the hole, and there's going to be really close tolerance when we go to put this together. There's not going to be a lot of room in there, but that's what makes this all one piece. And that has to be the last thing you put together to hold it all together before you get all nuts on, because notice how the spur gear won't go over the threads. This is a threaded area right there, and they're raised. That's what the nut grabs onto. See how that works? So you have to put everything on the other way first. Let's go ahead and take the output shaft and slide the spur gear on, because it'll have to go on first. Now, see where the threads and the hole are? Bearing side first, up to the threads, just like so. See how close this is to the spur gear? Let's get our friction plate in there, and this is just a fiberglass disc. Line it up, and this will probably move during assembly, but that's okay. Now we want to make sure and line up the holes, like so. Now I should have got this ready first, so let's grab the hemostats, and we're going to get this pin in there so that we can slip it between the two. It's a real tight area, so these work great for that. There we go. Now we'll get this lined up so that we can get that in there, and it's kind of touchy here because everything slides around so easily. Get it lined up, and then finding the alignment can be a little bit tricky. But once you find it, it'll slide right in. Look at there, it slid, almost slid all the way through. There you go. You push it in, And now we need to align the friction plate. So the friction disc has to line up with the plate here, and it's got to sit into the slots, like so. Now, using a finger, you want to hold that together while you put the spring on, and then add the nut. Now, with the nut kind of loose, see how it still turns? That's what the slipper action is. Tighten it up a little bit more. It still turns a little bit. Tighten it up a little bit more, and it's locked down. So now it's solid. So let's go ahead and put things back in. So you want to lead with the output shaft and run it through. Make sure that bearing sits good. Then slip the cover on. And we'll go ahead and run these screws back in. This is a screwdriver. The footage is sped up, but I'm doing this real slowly because you don't want to overheat the plastic. And then always torque by hand, guys. Always. There you go, just like that. A little check for the gears. The adjustment can be a little bit touchy with the motor next to it. A small wrench might come in handy. So now that we've got the Mega done, let's get into the 3S slipper assembly and show you how that one works. Okay, so here's the 3S assembly. And you can always tell because it's got the aluminum plate. So let's go ahead and get the drive shaft off, and then we've got the same 3 bolts to pull out, so let's get those out. Now this is sped up a little bit to save time, but nice and slow on all this stuff. When you use machinery, always go nice and slow. So we'll move the plate out of the way and gently push the bearing assembly through, and it comes right out in your hand. Let's get the bearings out of the way, and then there is a long screw here, and this is real slow, guys, because that's just a plastic nut that threads into. So real slow or you'll burn that plastic nut out, and it's hard to get out. So let's take it apart, and we'll lay it out in order so that you can see what order things go together. There we go, and that's the basics. There's where the nut is, and this is the piece. So that's the plastic nut. Always have to be real careful of that, guys. And then there are some small components here, a spring, we've got a bearing and 2 races, and I'll show you that here in a minute. So we'll take the bearings, set them out of the way. This is the drag plate for the outside with the plastic nut in it. And then we've got our plate assemblies there. These go in that side, it's deeper. The shallow side, the other friction plate goes on there, and then there's the other drag assembly on the outside, and those hook onto those fiberglass pieces. This is that small set of components with 2 races, a bearing, and the spring. And it sits in there just like that. Okay, to load this, take the deep side and put one of the friction plates in, put the splitter plate in there, and then add another friction plate. You want to load it this way so that you can control it. Now that is slotted, so it only goes in like this. Twist it until it drops in tight. Hold that together and put the one on the other side there. Okay, good. Now we want to sit this other drag plate right on top of the friction plate and put that long screw through there. Okay, so those all the components are lined up properly, and we're going to do this by hand because we want to go nice and slow. It's really sped up here, but we go in nice and slow here. Tighten it down just gently, and then you want to back it off 1.5 turns, and that's the factory setting. And then you can adjust it as you need to from there. So back 1.5 turns gets you to where the factory wants it to be. With the bearings back in place, that's the build. Now we'll go ahead and make sure this is clean, just like so. And remember, the long part here goes through the plate. See there? Make sure that your gearing looks good, everything's clean, the bearing is seated good, and then we'll put the cover plate on. That in place. We'll go ahead and tighten these down, and again, nice and slow here, and always tighten by hand. Very good. Now we'll put the outdrive unit on. This drives the drive line to the front end, and we'll put the guard on, just like that. There's your assembly. Now to adjust it, if it's outside the vehicle, hold your thumb over the gear, and you can tune this without it rolling on you. Back, forth, whatever you need to do. That's easy adjustment when outside of the car. And it takes a 2mm wrench for this one for adjustment. Okay, so there we go for the builds on these two. And the one thing I want to touch on here real quick is once these are in the car, you're going to have to be able to get in here to tune this. This is the 3S one, and it does require one of the small Allen wrenches to get in there and tune that once it's in the car. It's a little easier to pop it out and tune it with the bigger wrench, but the problem being that's a lot of work to get this out when you could just make sure when this is in the car, hold the rear end so the wheels won't turn, and then you can tighten this a little bit. If it's outside, you can hold it by the gear at the bottom, and once you get a grip on it, then you can just tune it a little bit and set it where you want, slip it back in the car. But in the car, you're going to have one of these little rudimentary wrenches, and they work pretty good. As far as the Mega one goes now, this one's a little easier because all you need is a wrench that fits this plastic red nut here, and that'll allow you to tune it. Same thing applies. The gears can't turn or it just rolls the whole system. So you need to make sure and block the gears with your finger to tighten it. But if it's in the car, a small wrench will do it. Don't let the rear wheels turn. So that's basically all there is to that, guys. They're pretty simple. The use on these, if you're curious about how these are supposed to be set up and what they're for, I'll leave a link in the description down below for Slipper Clutch 101. We just put this one out not too long ago, and it's designed to help you understand the basics of what it is. This video is how you do it. So there you go. So if you haven't already, don't forget to bash that like button and help our content spread. You know, if you find any value in what we do here at the channel, that's one way to make sure that our content spreads to others so we can help them too. At the end of the day, this is what this is all about. We already know how to do this, at least what works for us. We're trying to help others that are new to the hobby. This is always geared towards the new people, but that doesn't exclude everyone else. Everyone's invited. It's awesome every time. If you guys have anything you want to add to this video, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below and help others along the way. Hey guys, for AJ Jam Studios, I'm AJ Sam. Keep wrenching, guys.